And this is a disky. Everything's on the floor. So hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Kirsten, also known as Fire or A Fire Creates, and it's very nice to see you again. So today I'm going to just have a chat over about some of the projects I've been working on. I've got some things that I've finished and I've got some new yarny bits and pieces, as well as a few other things just to have a bit of a chat about. So if that sounds good to you, sit back and let's see what I've been up to. So first up, I have finished a pair of socks, and I do apologise, these do have a bit of fluff from the floor. I really need to give it a hoover, but these are my midnight socks, and these are done in Eden Cottage Titus 4-ply, which is a merino silk blend. And I'm not entirely sure where I got this yarn from. I think it might have been with a swap with some of my friends. But these are just a very, very simple pair of ankle socks. And I've just done these using the basic sock recipe that I've sort of perfected for my own feet over the years. And I like having a pair of socks on the needles. It's really good for using up little bit odds and ends of sock yarn, and I always need more socks. So I'm very pleased with those. They're nice and comfy. They're also nice and warm, as it has been a bit more chilly around here recently. So that's been a very welcome addition to the wardrobe. So the second project I've finished this month is a bit bigger than a pair of socks, and that is my yoga winter sweater. And this is designed by Neringa Ruke and is available to purchase on both Ravelry and her own website if you're interested. And this is a very, very nice raglan knit sweater. It's got the taller funnel neck, short run shaping for the neckline as well, and then just continues down. But at the bottom, we've got this really cool side slit, and the front and back at the lower edge are knitted separately, and it's a really, really nice sort of flattering fit. Now the pattern calls for quite a lot of positive ease, and I think it's recommended for 30 centimeters or 12 inches of positive ease, which for me was just a bit too much. So I opted to go for something more about 5 inches. So I knit the size medium, which is effectively the size 3, and this fits very, very nicely around my bust and everything. There's a couple of things with this pattern that I would note, and if you are on Ravelry and you have a look at the project notes of people who've knitted this sweater, there are some questions about gauge. A lot of people struggling to get the gauge right, or the stitch counts that are mentioned in the pattern don't really match with the gauge and the final sizing. Things like the yoke increases and everything don't seem to quite line up. So if you are looking to knit this sweater, I'd recommend having a little look at those online and just seeing how things work out. The other thing I would note is that the pattern, rather than saying knit to X inches or anything for things like length or sleeve length, it instead gives you a number of rows. And if I followed the rows as specified, the arm would have finished there and I would have started my cuff there, rather than the additional, 4 inches I needed to add. So that's something to bear in mind with. The same also applies for the side before you do the split, and this only required, I think, about 3.5 inches if you were following the gauge and the number of rows that were recommended. So instead I did mine for about 5 inches, and I am happy with where the split sits. I could have done it longer, but I wasn't entirely sure how much yarn I'd have left. As it happens, I probably could have done a lot more. But no, I really like the look of the sweater. It's incredibly warm. I've been overheating every time I've worn it. So hopefully there'll be some nice cold days where I can wear it. And yeah, this was my first time knitting with the Plütolopi as well, and I found it quite enjoyable. I held 2 strands of the yarn together, sort of from the plates that it's sold in, and it's quite interesting because obviously the staple length affects like what happens when you pull it. If you're holding it really close together, it's quite strong, but pulling from further apart is quite weak. So it was very easy to break the yarn. On the plus side, when you broke the yarn, it also made it very, very easy to join in. And it also meant that I had practically no ends to sew in at the end of this because everything just blended in nicely. I did try and do a sewn binder for the cuffs, which I did manage. I will admit that it was probably not the best approach to take because the yarn, pulling it through with the needle, did make it prone to splitting. But I did manage to get a slightly stretchier cuff, which I'm pleased about. And at the bottom of the sweater I just bound off in pattern, but it's still got quite a lot of stretch. It did need quite a lot of aggressive blocking just to stop it from curling or flipping up at the bottom, but blocking solved that problem and I'm very, very happy with it. So that was a fun thing to get done. And it's my first, as I say, my first experience with that type of yarn. And I'm very looking forward to trying it again for some other projects in the future. So I have several projects on the needles, a couple of garments and a pair of socks, but I'll start off talking about the cardigan that I'm working on. And this is the Camille wrap cardigan by Johanna Gehrisch. And this is a gorgeous lace weight held double wrap cardigan with a waist tie. And I'm making quite good progress on this so far. I've just split for the arms and I'm working on the main body and the front shaping for the overlap. And I am finding this quite enjoyable to knit. It is a bit tricky because you're holding 2 strands of lace weight double and sometimes it's very easy to miss one of the strands. But I think I've done pretty well about catching that and correcting it when I see it. And I am knitting this in 2 different yarns. I have got the Rowan fine lace, and this is a very old ball of the Rowan. The colourway is now discontinued, and I think it might have been discontinued for about 10 years, but this is in the colourway era. And then I have the Aloft from Knit Picks in their sort of fluffy mohair silk blend, and this is the colour Ube Heather, and the 2 of these do blend beautifully together to create like a slightly colour shifting effect, and I'm really, really happy with how it's working out. So the Rowan is a 2-ply lace weight with baby Suri alpaca and merino, and while it is a 2-ply, it does have a little bit of a halo, but obviously nothing to the same extent of the Knit Picks, which is 72% Super Kid mohair and 28% silk. And I'm finding this quite interesting to work with because it is so much softer than the Rowan Kid Silk Haze. And I've got a small scrap from a brioche sweater that I knitted last year, and this feels so much rougher, which I find quite interesting. But I'm loving the feeling of this. I love the fabric that it's creating. So it's been quite interesting just to try working with a different variety on that. Now, this pattern is available on Ravelry and also on the designer's website Calibri by Johanna.de. And as I said, it's a really, really enjoyable pattern. So I'm knitting this in size 2XL, and she does have a really, really good sizing range. Now the pattern recommends about 5 to 10 centimeters of positive ease for the sizes extra small up to XL, but for 2XL and up, it suggests going more for neutral ease. So I've gone to the 2XL size, which probably will have about 1 to 2 inches of positive ease, just because I fall in between a couple of the sizes. But I'm thinking as a nice drapey cardigan, it should be quite fun. All the instructions are incredibly clear, which I'm really enjoying. She also has really nice tables and everything lining out stitch counts for each section in between the increases and everything. And the shaping is just done with standard raglan increases. So I've still got about 60 rows to work on the body before I finish doing the increases for the wrap front. And I'm thinking when I finish that, I'll probably move on and do the sleeves, and then I'll know how much yarn I've got left to do the bands, because if need be, I'm hoping that I can do the ties a bit shorter if I am running a little bit low on yarn, because I do only have, I think, about 1200 yards of the Rowan, and I know that's cutting it very fine in terms of yardage based on the pattern notes. So next on my needles is the Twisted Tea shirt by Brianna Luppino, and that again is available on Ravelry and also on their own site, thelittlewolfknits.myshopify.com. And this is just a very basic t-shirt, 1x1 rib collar, short sleeves, and it's got a twisted stitch raglan. And again, I'm enjoying knitting this pattern. I'm using 2 different yarns because I don't have enough of either to do it in just one colour. So I'm using some Skein Queen Voluptuous Skinny, which is technically a sport weight, but it's a very fine sport weight. And I'm using that for the collar and the cuffs and for the bottom ribbing. And I'm striping that, just reach for this, And this is Rusty Ferret, and this is in the colour Cryptic, which is a white, but it's got flashes of pink and neon green and grey, and I'm really loving how the two of them are sort of combining. And I'm not having any big problems with things like pooling of colours or anything like that, so it's keeping a really nice random rhythm to the whole thing. I had originally planned on striping 3 yarns together for this pattern with another yarn from Rusty Ferret, and this one is Polywog. But when I started doing the initial swatches for it, it turned out that the base of this, rather than being white, is actually quite peachy. So I'm going to put this to one side for the moment, but I'd like to use this in a top as well. And I'm thinking if I could try and get like maybe a bright pink and maybe a peach and sort of stripe them all together, that'll work really nicely. So this one's going back into stash for the time being. Now, this pattern, she recommends, let me see, where's my notes? They recommend about 4 inches of positive ease. And I am knitting the size 6, which is a 52-inch bust, and that should give me about that level of ease. And currently, yeah, I'm just working up the yoke at the moment. I'm not entirely happy with how I'm switching the yarns around at the back, but I'll have a look at that and see if I can tweak it a bit in future. And I hadn't actually planned on casting this on so soon, but I realised earlier in the month that the 2 projects I had on the needles were the cardigan, which is in 2 strands of lace weight in a dark colour, and the blue socks, which are also in a very dark blue colour, and trying to knit those at night was excruciating. So I thought, you know what, cast on a project that uses something a lot lighter and brighter, and that'll be so much easier to knit at night. So what did I do? I've been working on this during the daytime and keep going back to the other ones to try and knit at night time, and it's, you think I'd learn, but apparently not. So I'm doing quite well at that. I am still working my way through the yoke, and hopefully I will be up to getting the sleeves split on that soon. But I am loving how the colours are working together on that. So the final project I've got on my needles is another pair of socks, and as usual I'm just using my basic sock recipe and my favourite needles for knitting socks, which are 2.25 millimetres. Let's try and stop that from escaping. And these are knitted in the Yarn Yard, and the base is Toddy, which is just merino nylon, and these are in the colourway Aprikosenwähe, which is named after the flan, like a flan cake thing with apricots. And rather than just knit plain socks again, I decided just to add a bit of texture. So I've got like a circular motif, which is sort of inspired loosely by apricot halves. They look slightly more like scales knitted up, but it's quite fun just to add a pattern. And this is one of the fun things when you do have a sock pattern that you like and you know works, is it's very easy just to jazz it up using different stitch techniques or adding ribbing or any motifs you want. And I'll pop this pattern, like the little chart I've done, I'll probably add this up onto the website just under like a freebie section. So keep an eye out for that in future. Now, I tend to knit the foot for about 14 centimetres before I do the gusset increases. So I've got quite a bit to go still on these, but they're working up quite nicely, and it's nice to have a fairly simple project around just for when you need it. So as I said, in terms of acquisitions, my Knit Picks order arrived, which is why I've got the Ube Heather Aloft. Everything else has all been sorted and put away, so I don't have that to show. But my other one, my other order, which came from Through the Wardrobe Yarn Company, of some of their leftover mini skeins from their advent calendars arrived. And I have, dropped stuff again. And I have a glorious selection of their advent calendar yarns. I think I got about 1 or 2 duplicate colours, but these are so gorgeous. And these are their slow burn singles, which is a 100% superwash merino. And these are just absolutely gorgeous. And if you see her yarns online on Instagram, I can assure you that they're just as pretty in person as they are in her photographs. So I'm very, very happy with these. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do with them, but I think for the moment I'm just going to hug them and squeeze them and call them George, because they're so very, very pretty, and I will find a good project to use these for as a bit of an indulgence for myself. So let's pop those back in there. In terms of plans for moving forward, I desperately need some more project bags. I have 4 project bags. I have 2 box bags like this. This one I use for my socks. My other one's got the Scrappy Mini Mania scarf in it that I'm using for my leftovers. And in terms of other knitting bags, I have this one which is attached to a project, and I have this one, both of which fit projects. Well, one of them fits the project. The cardigan is technically in this one, but I can't actually fit most of the stuff in, so I've still got another bag with more balls of yarn that are also over here as well. And it struck me that I need some bigger project bags. I did have a bigger project bag, and it got mouthed when we were moving, so I had to get rid of it. So something I'd like to do is to sew up a couple of larger project bags, because I am knitting more garments, and it would be nice to have things all stored together, like have all the yarn in the bag and all the needles and whatever notions I need. So that's something I'm going to work on. I would quite like to also start tackling a pair of trousers, but I need to get all the the fabric wash that I need and everything, and get some planning done for those. So a large part of what I've been doing, and this is something I started in August of last year, is trying to actually actively use down my stash. I know I've just done the massive order from Knit Picks. We're not including that in a logical way. So I've been trying to work my way down through my yarns, get the yardage down, get the number of skeins down. And I've been basically keeping a record of how much yarn comes in, how much yarn goes out. So I do that through Ravelry, but I also have my own spreadsheet as well. So if that's something that people are interested in, I could certainly go more into it. But I think as of last year, I think I knit about 8,600 yards, which is pretty good given that that was what, August to December, so 5 months. And I'm hoping to get an awful lot more done this year as well, and just start making a dent. I can see where I have worked my way through yarn, because that all of that Knit Picks order fitted into the boxes that I had, so I'm not actually taking up any additional space, and those boxes were all full. So the fact that a order of 29 balls, skeins, hanks, can't remember, I think it was 29 or 30 fitted in, does show that I have used quite a lot of stuff. And I will continue to keep recording that over this year. The other thing I've been doing, and I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this, is from August onwards, I've been keeping all of the yarn labels that I have and just shoving them in this jar. And I'm slightly unsure whether to continue doing that in 2025. I'm probably going to put all these ones in recycling now, but this very full little jar is all the yarn I used in 2024. And it's not actually all of it, because some of the stuff I've got did not have labels. So it's not 100% accurate, but it is a really nice visual representation of how much I've knitted. And I think I'm going to continue doing that, if not, but for no particular reason other than my own amusement. So that's always fun. But yeah, does anyone else sort of choose to do things like this so you can have a tangible recognition of what you've done? Or is it just me liking to hoard things in jars? Who knows? So really just summing things up, plans moving forward is more knitting, obviously. I would like to get the sewing machine out on serger and start getting back into doing a bit of sewing, and yeah, just having a bit of a play around. I've got a whole array of art supplies that I'd really like to start playing around with again. So that might pop up a bit in the near future. Now, if you've enjoyed this video today, please give the video a like. And if you want to say hello, pop a comment down below. But thank you very, very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.